One quarter of the way through 2025, here is my rapid review of all of the books that I have read so far this year. Hello, if you're new here, I'm Sinead. This is my spooky corner of YouTube where I talk about spooky books, spooky films, spooky things that you may remember from your childhood, and any strangeness that I have seen through the day. It's usually crows. If you're looking for a rapid check-in of what someone like me has been reading for the year, this is it. Not gonna lie to you, also trying a new filming setup. Will any of this go out? Who knows? This is the fluffy mic. It's going to appear on screen because the sound quality is better. What fell down just there? There are things moving in here. January. Pen pal. A man is trying to work out what might have been happening in his childhood that he wasn't aware of based on his disjointed memories and some disturbing scenes he has vague recollections of. This is a Reddit story that absolutely does translate into a great piece of tense, frightening horror fiction. We used to live here. Some strangers knock on the door of a couple renovating their new home and say, "We used to live here, can we come in?" And then some weirdness occurs, and it's not as good as it thinks it is. A book with a great premise that wanders too wildly down the mind-bending route to really be enjoyable in the end. This one did not work for me. It will only hurt for a moment. A woman escaping an abusive relationship goes to a writer's retreat in a beautiful remote part of the country, overshadowed by the wreck of a former wellness retreat that has a very dark past, and dark things appear to be happening at this retreat. Reading this book felt like picking through some of my favourite point-and-click adventure games. However, the central story wasn't quite as strong in the end. The drama got over the top without really delivering on what could have been a compelling ghost story and mystery. Check your trigger warnings. A Path of Thorns, one of the early books in A.J. Slatter's Sourdough universe. A woman in magical disguise descends upon a big Gothic mansion trying to find out secrets from a family who have done all sorts of bad things in the past. This is a Gothic fantasy that is packed with details, packed with multiple storylines, and it can get confusing and feel rushed in parts, though the pieces that work very well. Witches, secrets, werewolves, there's a lot to like. February. Incidents Around the House, another hyped horror book. A young girl narrates the story of how she lives at home with her mother and her father and other mommy who lives in her closet, who asks her every night, "Can I go into your heart?" This takes a classic story of a family unit and a child experiencing a horror and gives it a decent fresh twist. This was scary, it was tense in parts, there were moments of cliche characterization, but overall, this did give me the chills. Mr. Magic, the story of a cursed children's TV program that has disappeared from the airwaves, and the former stars of the show get together to try and solve the mystery. What a great premise and what terrible execution, in my opinion. This book 100% did not work for me. There was so much going on, it got convoluted, it was unrealistic, it wasn't enjoyable. Also, I know it would have ruined the story, but women, don't get into a car full of strange men who are saying to you, "We have secrets from your past that we can help you solve. You must come with us because we're not going to tell you about what it is now, but if you come along this journey, you'll find out on the way." Don't get in the car. Don't get in the car. That's unrealistic. I don't care how much horror and magic is going on, you're not getting in that car. A Poisoner's Tale. This was a dip into historical fiction that was delicious. This is a fictionalized account of the legend of Julia Tofana, the poisoner who lived in Rome in the 1600s and was said to be responsible for the deaths of 600 men. Was she a cold-blooded serial killer and witch, or was she in fact a savior to many, many women trapped in abusive marriages? This is a beautiful but brutal story which you should exercise caution going into, but it is exquisitely executed and a wonderful take on Julia's story. The Return. 4 friends go to a beautiful hotel on a girls' retreat after one of their friends has been missing for over a year after wandering into a forest and then reappears but doesn't quite seem herself, and she is acting very strangely on this girl's getaway. I am a huge fan of Rachel Harrison's works. This was her first novel. It does show that this was her debut. It was a little bit convoluted and didn't quite feel as pacey, but there were the bones of a very good story in there, and Rachel Harrison is an author everyone should check out, in my opinion. This Cursed House. A young woman in the 1950s receives a job offer to act as governess to a family in a huge, sprawling southern Gothic mansion. When she arrives, she finds out she's not actually going to be a governess. The family need her help, breaking a curse that has sat over them and the household for many, many years, and she has more connections to the family than she realised. Yep, the sun's just gone in. I've just realised that affects the lighting in this room. This is a great Gothic ghost story about houses with secrets and the people who stay in them, but it's also a story about racism, about colorism, about slavery. The execution was a little bit plodding in parts, but overall I thought this book was a hit. Witchcraft for Wayward Girls. A new book by Grady Hendrix is always going to cause a stir in the horror community, and this story is strong. It is the story of a mother and baby home in America in 1970s, a place where young women who have fallen in the family way can go discreetly, have their children put up for adoption, and then they can go back to their normal lives with nary a worry. It is a boring and pretty miserable existence until the girls start dabbling in witchcraft, but this witchcraft comes with a very high price. This is a dense book by this author, tackling some very challenging subject matters, but overall he executes it very well. This is a good story about friendship, it is a very good story about the darkness of witchcraft, and it is also a look at a terrible slice of history, Homicide at the Haunted House. A delightful cozy mystery set in the town of Nightmare, where the actors at a scare attraction may be a little bit more method than most people might realise. And a murder takes place. Cozy, cute, funny, spooky, everything you want in an easy to read cozy mystery. Crypt of the Moon Spider. I don't think I can summarise this plot accurately in these short reviews, but think alternate Victorian history, mental hospital on the moon, spiders providing special webs that you can fix your brain with, and very, very bloody vengeance from some people who aren't happy with the whole setup on our lunar surface. A tiny Gothic novella that does not scrimp for a moment in atmosphere, in emotion, in imagery. It was absolutely sensational. I loved it with every fibre of my being, even though it's incredibly disturbing and quite gory in parts, and a great lesson of sometimes less is more. Hungerstone. This is a fully sapphic retelling, reimagining of Sheridan Le Fanu's story Camilla. The tale is set in the north of England and centres around Lenore, who is in a loveless marriage to a huge industrialist, and she encounters Camilla following a carriage accident that throws this mysterious, beguiling woman into her tight-knit, controlled, miserable existence. Dripping with Gothic atmosphere and erotic tension, this is a wonderful book discussing female rage, female hungers, and our desires. The Last One at the Wedding. A middle-aged man's estranged daughter is marrying into an incredibly rich and powerful family, and he has been invited to the wedding, and nothing really happens. Yes, the family have secrets, yes, there are shady dealings, and there's a little bit of drama at the end, but really nothing happens. It's very boring. The Lamb. A mother and daughter living in the semi-wilderness have resorted to cannibalism to satiate the mother's hunger, but then a beautiful woman walks into their lives and the duo become a trio. Told from the perspective of the daughter, this is a dark fairy tale all about human hunger again and desires and cannibalism. There was a lot to like about this book, but I personally felt it was let down by some clumsy errors really in the writing, and also it became repetitive and a little bit too long for what is a very dark book, or could have been a wonderful short fairy tale. The Favourites. Wuthering Heights in the modern day, set in the world of competitive ice skating. I did not finish this book because I felt they all needed to skate more and cry less. A good romantic drama if you want it, wasn't really for me. The Year of the Witching. This melds elements of folk horror, fantasy, and good old stories of witchcraft. It is a story of a young woman who is living in a rural community that is overseen by an incredibly puritanical regime. But then she ends up conjuring the witches who have been banished to the woodland, and then strange calamities start falling upon the land. She has to find out about her past and how to deal with the issues she is facing. After a slow start, this emerged into a really enjoyable fantasy folk horror. I loved the vibes of it. This is a very good author and I've enjoyed their other works. The eyes are the best part. Another book about cannibalism. This is the story of a young Korean American woman who is living at home with her mother and her younger sister. Their father has left them. The mother decides to go out with a white man, and he is a walking red flag if we have ever seen one. The teenage daughter is trying to manage her domestic situation while also trying to quell an emerging desire she has to eat blue eyes. This book is wild, it is brutal, and it has some grotesque moments in it, but it's also a very good story about this family and what we do for our loved ones to support them, even though we are repulsed by some of their actions. I had another DNF in March. It was Withered Hill, a folk horror story that has been recommended and was a very good premise overall. Having skim-read it, I think there is a good story at the heart of it, but I had major issues with the author writing about women. It felt incredibly overly judgmental and hypersexualized. That was January through March. A lot of very good stories about people eating each other, and some occasions of them kissing each other after they've done the eating and the nibbling. I hope the first quarter of 2025 has been simply sensational for you. If you want to know more about the books that I am reading for the rest of the year, please do hit subscribe on this channel, like this video, give me a comment if you would like to request some content, or to suggest more books that I definitely should be diving into. Stay spooky, bye-bye. I really hope this video worked.